Did you know there's an art exhibit highlighting our veterans going on at the American Pavilion in Epcot right now? No, seriously, did you know? Hey friends, DTLalaland here. I am so excited to bring you along with me to Epcot so that you can see the art exhibit by former President George Bush, Portraits of Courage, over at the American Pavilion in Epcot. Stay to the end so you can hear my thoughts on this exhibit, which you may or may not agree on. These oil-based canvases are President Bush's way of honoring those military servicemen and women who served our nation with honor since 9/11, and some whom he's come to know personally. The George W. Bush Institute for Veterans and Military Families is helping veterans and their families make successful transitions to civilian life. This free institute helps veterans with employment, education, health, and well-being space so the transitions are simpler and more accessible for veterans. The former president met the 96 men and 2 women he painted in military hospitals, at the Warrior 100K mountain bike rides, and Warrior Open golf outings sponsored by the Bush Institute. These paintings are from his book, Portraits of Courage, a Commander-in-Chief's Tribute to America's Warriors. You can find the book on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description below. To honor and respect the veterans former President Bush has painted, I'll be showing you each painting and providing the individual's name and rank as we go through them. This is Lance Corporal Timothy John Lane. First Lieutenant Melissa Stockwell, and the former President George Bush. Sergeant First Class Michael R. Rodriguez. Staff Sergeant Dan Nevins. Specialist Jacob Lerner. Lance Corporal Adam Jenick. Sergeant First Class Ramon Padillo. Gunnery Sergeant John Paul Shitspanowski. And this is Sergeant William J. Gannum. This is Petty Officer Third Class Chris Goner. Specialist Lee Sage. This is Sergeant David A. Wright. And Specialist Joseph E. Santiago. Staff Sergeant Ben Dellinger. This is Sergeant J.K. Fan Jr. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Gade. Staff Sergeant Alvis Todd DeMercy. Master Sergeant Sean Bennett. Sergeant Daniel Cacera. And this is Sergeant Saul Martinez. This is Captain Brian Vinson, who was in the Army from 2005 to 2004. This is Sergeant Thomas Brooks, U.S. Marine Corps 2006-2012. Over here, this is Corporal Joshua Michaels, U.S. Army 1999 to 2013. And here is First Lieutenant Dennis Oliverio, Marine Corps. Most of these are oils on a stretched canvas. Sergeant Major Chris DeMars. Lieutenant Colonel David Haynes. Sergeant Justin Bond. Staff Sergeant Timothy Brown. Lieutenant Colonel Justin Constantine. Master Sergeant Israel Del Toro Jr. Staff Sergeant Omar Romney. Staff Sergeant Spencer Milo. Staff Sergeant Matthew DeWitt. Master Sergeant Scott Neal. This is Sergeant First Class Thomas William Costello. This is First Lieutenant Brian Donarski. This is Staff Sergeant James Stanek Jr. This is Captain Jay Barclay. This is Lieutenant Colonel Kent Graham Sondheim. Sergeant Bryce Franklin Cole. Staff Sergeant Zachariah Collette. This is Sergeant First Class Scott Allen Adams Sr. This is Captain Kevin Rosblum. Chief Warrant Officer 3, James Williamson. Sergeant Matthew S. Ayers. Sergeant Michael Joseph Leonard Politowitz. Sergeant Leslie Zimmerman. Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Michael Dwyer. Okay, well, I can't get in here to see what these are. This is Sergeant First Class Jeremy Henderson. This is Specialist Juan Carlo Hernandez. This is Staff Sergeant Robert Dove. And Sergeant First Class John Falconberry. Specialist Alexander Glenn Camden. Sergeant Andy Hatcher. This is Chief Warrant Officer 3, Jeremy James Valdez. Sergeant Robert K. Leonard. Staff Sergeant Andrew Hillstrom. This is Corporate David Smith. Sergeant Scott P. Lilly. This is Sergeant Matthew Zebek. I appreciate the art exhibit and what former President Bush was trying to do to support our veterans and servicemen and women who have sacrificed their lives so that we have our freedom. However, I do have some issues with this exhibit. First, the amount of marketing and publicity for this event has been shamefully amiss. What are you doing, Disney? Where were the posters? Where was the signage? Where was the big fanfare that this amazing art exhibit, which is to support veterans transitioning back into society, which is there to show the veterans, where was the signage and where was the publicity to get people to come into this exhibit? I talked to so many people on buses, in line, while I was videotaping the pictures themselves. They had no idea that the Portraits of Courage was even exhibited. They didn't even know what it was. There were these small little placards that said Portraits of Courage and gave some information about it. And there was one little spot that did give some detail. But if you didn't know what this was, you had no idea what all these paintings even were. I've talked to a bunch of people, they've never even heard of George Bush's book, Portraits of Courage. So why not promote it, since the benefits of purchasing the book goes right back into the George Bush initiative to help veterans transition from war to society. Why would you not promote this? Disney is so huge in supporting our veterans with their Shades of Green resort that is specifically for veterans. Why would you not promote this more? Why would you not have this out there so that everyone could be able to have that appreciation, show their appreciation? I think that's the big thing that's missing. Veterans want regular people like me who have never served. They want to see that I appreciate all their sacrifice. And to have that display there without any context, I think is really, really shameful. And Disney needs to look at their promotions, and they need to really, since it's going to be there for a whole nother year, you have an opportunity to really do better, Disney. So that's my thoughts for the first thing. The second thing is, I really do wish that there was some additional detail with each of the individual paintings. I don't want to pry into how they were injured or any of the horrors that they had of war. That is something that is personal. But what I do wish that they had was some type of context as to why was this person important to George Bush? Why did he pick this person to paint? Did this person get a Medal of Honor? Did they save other people? Did they, were they a part of a group that were on a special mission? I don't need to know the details, but I do think it would have been good to have just a little bit more information about why this person was important and why George Bush felt that he needed to paint this person, so that I could have a little bit more connection with that person, a little bit more feeling, instead of, corporate so-and-so. Name and rank and when and where they served. I just feel like that's so cold. I feel like that it could have been a little bit more information so that, again, I could have some more connection with this person. If the purpose of this display is to encourage us to buy George Bush's book, Portraits of Courage, because again, the proceeds of purchasing that book go back to the George Bush Institute, which helps veterans transition from being in service unto society, well, then wouldn't you want to have the books available for purchase, or more information so that people could have some heartfelt emotion to want to buy that book, to want to go look at that art exhibit, to have those feelings, those connections, to be able to have some appreciation for that sacrifice that these people made. I don't understand why it is just the pictures, their rank, their name, their service, and their time, and that's it. I just don't feel like that was enough. I agree, knowing that they made a sacrifice, that should be enough, and I can appreciate that, but I just feel like if this exhibit is about helping the veterans to heal, then I think part of that is educating society, the world, about appreciating our veterans and their sacrifice that they made, and that this art exhibit could have kind of breached that gap that was missing. So with that, you may or may not agree with me. You may think that this exhibit was wonderful. You may not even know that that exhibit is there. You might have gone to Epcot and had no idea that that was even there going on. But I do encourage you to go to Epcot, go into the American Adventure Pavilion, and take a look at this Portraits of Courage display. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree or do you disagree? Am I being too cold-hearted about it? Am I being too selfish? You let me know down in the comments. And with that, on to the next. Hey, we're still over here in Epcot. Have you seen the new Communicore Hall building that opened up in early June? Well, we've been inside, but is it really worth waiting a whole year long for this? Let's check it out together in our next video. Let's go!